I'm joined now by former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, retired Lieutenant General Doug Lute, and New York Times White House and national security correspondent David Sanger. And David, you were in the Oval Office with a couple of other New York Times reporters this week for a pretty remarkable interview with the president. Set the scene.
Well, it was remarkable. The Times' relationship with the president, as you know, has been a little bit fraught at times. He's sued the Times on several occasions. But he's also very willing to sit down and talk about his foreign policy issues at length. And we went in for a general interview that started at 5 p.m. and ended a little after 9.
Well, and part of that interview, and I know you recorded the audio, he was asked whether, this is a fascinating answer, whether there were limits to his global powers. Let's listen.
Do you see any checks on your power on the world stage? Is there anything that could stop you if you wanted to?
Yeah, there's one thing, my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop.
Not international
and that's
law.
very good. I don't need international law. I'm not looking to hurt people. I'm not looking to kill people.
David?
It was a great question by Katie Rogers you heard there. I think what the president was saying is that he is feeling right now sort of at the top of his game after the bombing of the Iranian nuclear sites, the seizure of Maduro, and that basically power rules. And it's a little bit of what you heard from Stephen Miller early on, which is international law is to be followed when it is convenient to us. But in the world we live in today, in Trump's mind, it's the big superpowers with the capability to do what they can, and everyone else is going to have to just accommodate.
And Ambassador Lute, you, David was in an Oval Office for a couple of hours. You were in and out of Oval Offices much of your career with two presidents, George Bush and Barack Obama. When you hear a statement like that, what's your reaction?
Well, I think all of those presidents that you mentioned, Martha, have had as their #1 priority the security of American interests and security of American people. I'd argue that it's international law that actually provides that security. It provides a base of stability and predictability, not only for us, but for the rest of the world as well. So I don't think there shouldn't be a contrast between international law and American security. There actually should be mutually reinforcing.
And David, I want to move on to something else. He talked about Venezuela as well, but was also asked about what kind of message that what happened in Venezuela sends to Vladimir Putin about Ukraine and China's President Xi about Taiwan. Let's listen.
Xi would tell you Taiwan's a threat to China, that it's a separatist operation.
He considers it to be a part of China, and that's up to him what he's going to be doing. But you know, I've expressed to him that I would be very unhappy if he did that.
So what I was trying to get at here was, had the president thought about the second-order effects of the operation in Venezuela, the seizure of Maduro, this kind of remote control version of occupation that we're doing, and how Xi and Putin might take that? And I think what his answer revealed, Martha, was that he is perfectly willing to let Xi determine Taiwan's future. He has said, we would prefer you don't do it. But that answer was not rife with Xi needs to know the United States would come to Taiwan's defense.
They've got to be getting a message, right, Doug?
Well, look, I think neither President Xi nor President Putin need an excuse or an example, a pretext for actions that they see in their interests. And this has been perfectly clear for a long time. I mean, Putin invaded Georgia in 2008, Ukraine in 2014, Ukraine again in 2022. Xi threatens routinely the sovereignty of Taiwan, and it has aggressive actions in the South China Sea. So neither one of them needs an example.
And finally, David, Greenland, we heard what Stephen Miller said there, heard what Rand Paul said about that as well. I'm not going to play it, but I want to say what Trump said. I think that ownership gives you a thing that you can't do, whether you're talking about a lease or a treaty. Ownership gives you things and elements that you can't get from just signing a document. So what do you think he's going to do then?
So at one point, he said, look, it's just psychological with me. I just want to own it. And I just kept thinking to myself, here is a man who rose as a real estate developer in New York. He knows the difference between owning and leasing. I've been to Greenland just a few months ago. There's nothing that we need to accomplish we couldn't do by reopening the bases that the U.S. has had there for
That's
years.
exactly what I was going to ask Ambassador Lute. I mean, the national security concerns, there are national security concerns, but is there anything we can't do?
That's right. I mean, we have national security concerns in and around Greenland. I mean, the Arctic Sea is becoming increasingly trafficable because of ice melting and so forth, the security of the North Atlantic, the potential for tapping critical minerals in Greenland. All of these are important. But this is an open door, Martha, and I wish the president would consider simply walking through it rather than blowing it down.
And David, we have like 10 seconds. Just wrap up your thoughts of what that was like in the Oval Office.
You know, a lot of people thought that Donald Trump was an isolationist. He's anything but. He's an interventionist, and we have discovered that he's got some imperial tendencies to him. And they've all been on display, and he's around for the next 3 years, and I think you'll probably see more.
Probably will. Thanks for joining us this morning.